Welcome on in, everybody, here to the pregame Blitz at Auburn Undercover here inside of Jordan-Hare Stadium for the home opener, Auburn's home opener. Nathan King, joined here by Jason Caldwell. Tigers facing off tonight against Ball State at 6:30 Central Time. Jason was going back through some data yesterday, and this could very well be the largest point spread in favor of Auburn ever against an FBS opponent. So obviously Auburn expected to handle business tonight against what's expected to be one of the lower rated teams in college football this year. And so really, we've been talking about it all week. There's only so much you can talk about with a game like this. Hugh Freeze put it best. This is Auburn versus Auburn. This is a chance for Auburn to get better, and obviously a chance where the coaching staff wants to see this team go out and execute and clean up a couple issues from last week.
Yeah, no, this is about Auburn. When you think about this game, how well can Auburn perform? How well can Auburn execute? How well can Auburn limit mistakes? Those are the things you look at today, because this is about taking care of business. And weather should be good, a little breezy out here right now, so it could impact the passing game a little bit. But you start looking at this one. Hey, can you go out and execute both sides of the ball? Do the things you're supposed to do. If you do that, you should be in good shape.
Yeah, we'll start with, you mentioned the offensive side of the ball. Opening up the passing game a little bit, I think is what they want to do. Hugh Freeze said on Thursday, he said, look, everybody's anxious to see what it'll look like. They know they have talent at wide receiver. They know they have the ability to do it. But you got to go out and pitch and catch. You got to be in timing. Should be a good opportunity. I'll be interested to see what Ball State does in terms of, because when you go out and you put 307 rushing yards in the first week, that obviously shows teams that you need to respect that part of your offense. I really don't know if it's going to matter very much what Ball State does defensively, but in particular, once he gets into the second half, if Auburn's able to sustain a big lead, as Hugh Freeze told us on Thursday, it's going to be Deuce Knight at quarterback because they want to maintain Ashton Daniels because they think he could play another year, so they want to maintain his red shirt.
Yeah, this is one where you look at it. Ball State's been fairly good against the run, but it's really been because they've been so bad against the pass. And so if you're Ball State, you have to stack the line of scrimmage. You don't have any choice. You cannot let Auburn just run the football. You can't do it. So I would expect them to come up and have lots of guys in the line of scrimmage, try to create some havoc, which should create some one-on-one opportunities in the passing game for this Auburn attack. So, if you're Ball State, to me, this is the exact polar opposite of what Baylor did last week, in my opinion. I think you just got to stack the line of scrimmage and make Auburn beat you throwing the football. Yeah,
there should be some opportunities. I mentioned Deuce Knight. Auburn would like to get some of its young talent on the field. There will be no Damari Alston at running back today. Minor shoulder injury, just there's no reason to risk it in this game. So maybe a little bit of Omar Mabson from right down the street at Auburn High School have some carries. Darrell Robinson, the UConn transfer, only saw him with one carry last week. On the defensive side of the ball, Jason, I think that was probably the number one focus of this week, tackling. And then Hugh Freeze talked about it this week, not grabbing. There were a couple of those key holding penalties converted to third down and converted to fourth down. For Baylor, we saw the defensive backs with like some padded mitts on their hands during practice so they can defend without grabbing. Again, we talked about it at the beginning. Executing what you need to do, tackling is first and foremost, because Hugh Freeze says they had 30 missed tackles in that Baylor game.
Yeah, and again, I mentioned the opposite for what Auburn's offense will face this week. It is totally opposite from what Auburn's defense will face this week because this is not Baylor's passing attack. And so, again, Baylor throw the ball for over 400 yards again against SMU. Ball State is not a team that's going to throw it a bunch and probably should not have much success throwing the football. You got a converted DB and wide receiver guy back at quarterback for this team. They do have some guys outside that could make a play or two, but I think Ball State would like to shorten this game as much as possible, try to run the football and do some things. I don't expect Auburn to face a full-on 40, 45 passes like we've seen in games like this before.
Yeah, like Jason said, we'll see how it goes weather-wise, if that is able to hold up and give everybody an even playing field over the course of 4 quarters. A little bit of a breeze right now, maybe some rain later on. Hopefully we hold off on any sort of delay. This should be a game for some of Auburn's. Auburn's maintained this roster talent and improved this roster talent over the last couple of years. These are maybe the kind of games where you get those guys on the field. Speaking of young roster talent, obviously the 2025 class would like to get on the field in this game. An important recruiting weekend as well for the 2026 class and beyond. So to talk a little bit more about that with Jason, we'll bring in our recruiting reporter, Christian Clemente.
Yeah, Jason, it's we talked about it this week. You have to load up because of your lack of home game opportunities early in the season. Auburn staff is doing that. 3 official visitors, two of those are commitments. Peyton Falzone, Kentrell White, Chris Wells, the brother of Corey Wells, is the really see some jitters here.
Defensive line,
yes, so he'll be in. He's the other official visitor. In terms of the rest of the names, like 50-plus visitors and a lot of big ones. Let's start with Corey Wells and Chris Wells. Corey committed to Texas, probably Auburn's top interior defensive line target. Huge to get him back. And look, his brother's on his official visit, so it's basically a full official visit for him as well.
Absolutely, yeah. These are opportunities you mentioned. You don't have many of these early on for Auburn, so this is an opportunity, especially when you talk about defensive line. Auburn's going to turn this defensive line over again. You're going to have some players look that like Malik Autry and Jordan Crawford to play early next year. So it's a huge opportunity. Auburn doesn't have an interior defensive line committed. So you start talking, hey, look, here's your chance. Here's your opportunity. So yeah, I think it's a big deal for Auburn this weekend.
We'll stay at defensive line. Move to the 2027 class real quick. Donovan Moore from Hueytown, he'll be in. Elijah Brown from Prattville, he'll be in. Carlos May from Ramsey, he'll be in. Those are three of the biggest names in the state next year. Donovan Moore is the biggest in the 24/7 Sports Composite. He's the number 1 player in the state. Number 2 defensive lineman or number 3 defensive lineman in the country. One of those two. Either way, really, really good. And we feel really, really good about Auburn's chances to potentially get something done this weekend or here shortly after as well.
Yeah, no, this 27 class, we mentioned, like, sometimes things go in cycles. You look in 26 class, not as strong in state as it's been. Obviously, 25 was huge. 27 looks to be huge again. And so you start to get some footprint back in that class for Auburn. And you start talking about it. You have the DB commitment from Mobile, who's having a really good season, Jalen Scott. And you look at these, obviously a lot of quarterbacks in the state in 27. So it's a great opportunity to get some of those kids on campus here these next few weeks.
Jason, jumping back to the 2026 class, probably expected at least the return of Shadarius Tootle, Auburn's former commitment, who was committed for a little under a year or so there, flipped to Georgia in June, but he's expected back in this weekend. Yeah, we were asked on the message board, is this something, is this nothing? It's
kind of in between.
It's definitely noteworthy that he's here. I mean, he visited Georgia last weekend. Georgia has another home game this weekend, but he's in Auburn. We knew that Auburn was not going to give up on his recruitment. It was not the same as Jermichael Garrett, where Auburn moved on. For Shadarius Tootle, Auburn wanted him, still wants him, still pursuing him. So you get him back, and we'll kind of see what happens from here.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you get a guy back on campus, a guy that you've had relationships with, so familiar with Auburn. You get back and you go, hey, that feels pretty good again. So you never know. Like I said, it's absolutely something. How much, we don't know. We'll find out. But yeah, to get him back here it is more than just, hey, he's on campus again kind of business.
Yeah, and then one of the most intriguing names that's in this weekend, Lasiah Jackson, the Stanford cornerback commit out of Lee County. Interesting player, like 6'3", 200-ish, so big and long. He could play safety. I think Stanford has him committed as a safety, which when you look at the way Auburn's DB class is kind of set up, you've already got an elite safety in Braylon Womack. You don't have a corner, but you don't really need a corner. So if you're only taking one cornerback and you're getting kind of a versatile piece, he makes a lot of sense. Now, he's been committed to Stanford for a little bit now. Top 247 player, blue chip guy. Auburn's been working on him slowly over the past couple of months. He's coming in. He hasn't taken an official visit either, so we'll see that probably later on this season. Really interesting. We just have to learn. Like, I don't have a whole lot to say outside of interesting. Very curious what he has to say afterwards and his interest.
And absolutely, these are the kinds of guys that we talked about all throughout the summer. Going, look, there's going to be some names that people might go, oh, either, hey, I don't know that guy, or well, he's already committed elsewhere. Between now and December, there are going to be names where you go, okay, it pops back up again. This could be one of those guys for Auburn, and obviously a versatile guy that could be a big deal if you were to get a guy like this.
Yes, that's just a handful of the names. Deshaun Spencer, the Duke wide receiver coming from Saraland, he'll be in. We've got it all covered over at auburnundercover.com. The game day recruiting notebook is live as y'all are watching this. So appreciate everyone tuning in. Hopefully you guys can hear us decently well over the wind here. Patrick's been working his magic, hopefully, making sure the audio is good. So appreciate everyone here. We'll catch you guys after the game for the post-game pod and everything at auburnundercover.com during the game.